Hi, Murph.
Good morning and welcome to another morning episode of Real Estate Ready Podcast. Just gonna pour myself a little coffee from my French press. I've got my coffee mug here that says "Good morning, asshole." My wife got this in New York City many years ago.
It's really pretty.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I am in Steamboat
Nice.
just enjoying some mountain town time.
There you
Buddy
go.
and I went to the dog park. The thing I love about Steamboat the most is how dog friendly it is, and the dog parks up here are amazing.
Yeah.
And most of them are off leash, and it's more acceptable to have your dog off leash up here than say down in Fort Collins.
Our dog goes crazy. She's not allowed off leash. Real quick before we get to our guest, Thanksgiving plans. How are you gonna do Thanksgiving this year during COVID?
Oh, I'm staying home.
Okay.
maybe staying home in Steamboat, or maybe staying down in Fort Collins. Haven't decided yet. I think we're still gonna do a turkey. I mean, because I do have a giant 6'1" teenage kid at home, so I'm not worried about having too much food ever. In fact, too much food is usually yes.
You need leftovers. If anything, you just get it for leftovers.
I'll take all the leftovers. What are you doing?
So my parents, they're older, they're more high risk, and so Chelsea's gonna do a Thanksgiving dinner. They're gonna come over to our house. We're gonna give them the food, have it all prepared for them. They'll take it home, and then we're gonna do a Zoom Thanksgiving with everybody.
Cute.
So
yeah,
I think they didn't want to come in the house and all that stuff. So
yeah, it's just it's a good year to just stay home and be careful. And besides, it's fun to just have Thanksgiving. I'm excited to just have it be the three of us, honestly. Cool. Getting together can be exhausting, especially when there's traveling involved. So
I know. All right. Well, here, last question for you is, are you organized?
Not.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say you are?
4.5.
Really?
Yeah, because here's the thing. I don't where things go makes sense to me, but I don't think they actually make sense for the flow of life and how so I'm kind of constantly always reorganizing things and moving stuff around, and that's I'm pretty sure that's not what you're supposed to do in order to be efficient.
Today is your lucky day for all of our listeners. So we have the amazing Jodie Zimmer. I'm going to kind of read her bio real quickly, and then we'll bring her in. But A Sense of Place, Organizing, Staging, and Redesign was founded in 2018 by Jodie Zimmer. Jodie is a graduate. I saw this. This is crazy. I want to ask her about this. As a graduate of the Staging Studios Staging Design Professional Expert Level Training. Woo, that's a lot. And as a lifelong organizer. All right, so this will be good. Her mission is to help clients create well-organized, thoughtfully styled places using sustainable products and practices. Love that. We work hand in hand to stage homes to sell quickly and for top dollar, as well as prepare for a smooth moving process. We believe that organizing and staging play an essential role in the success of selling, as well as in the comfort of everyday living in our homes. Jodie, welcome to Real Estate Ready.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I interviewed Jodie for a pilot episode of a podcast that I was going to do before launching the Real Estate Ready podcast, almost 2 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
And and since then, you've kind of pivoted your business a little bit and got a little bit more clarity about what it is that you actually wanted to do. So maybe you can just kind of dive in and tell us a little bit more about your background, how you got started in this, and also what made you kind of reassess your business recently.
You bet. So I did. I originally started off as more of a concierge business. And that was fun, but the most fun of that was the organizing part. So I was like, okay, well, let's scrap all the other things and let's just focus on organizing. And then as time progressed, in my personal life, my husband and I had remodeled our home and got it ready to sell. And so the staging process and the organizing process I saw really were woven together. I mean, they supported one another. And so I thought, well, this makes sense. And so not only staging to sell it, but really staging to live in it. And that's a term that's been coined by Joshua Becker, who does Becoming Minimalist. That's where I first heard that. And you and I had talked about that one time during kind of a brainstorm session that we had. And it really kind of clicked for me. It just did all the things for me that I've been wanting to be able to do for myself in our own home, as well as for clients, to show them the road to being more organized and having a space that really promotes well-being and just streamlining life. There's so much going on that we don't have control over. And so having the things in our home the way that makes sense for us to use them and support us, we do have control over, complete and total control, mostly. I mean, kids aside, but that's the other component of it. Having been a teacher for 16 years, I taught organization in all of my lesson plans. And it didn't even occur to me until I was working on my website. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've been teaching organization forever. My pupils were, preschool, and now they're adults. But it's the same concepts. It's basically just learning process over product. It doesn't have to be perfect. Your home doesn't have to be, everything in its place all the time. That's not realistic. That's not how we live. But to train yourself and get the concepts down so that things do truly have a place makes it easier to find, and it cuts time away from having to search, oh my gosh, and running out the door and just starting your morning hectic. Or like we were just talking about, getting ready for Thanksgiving. That's quite an undertaking to prepare an entire meal in our own homes and to have our kitchen perfectly organized so we know where the turkey baster is, because we use it once a year, and to have the thermometer ready and stuff like that. So it really is something that I have been doing my entire life. And I really just love it. It really brings me so much joy.
Was that line staging to live in it? Did I get that right?
Staging for living. Mm-hmm.
Oh, staging for a living.
Yeah,
oh.
staging for living. And like I said, that's Joshua Becker. Becoming Minimalist is his route of sharing. And he's gone, there's a spectrum of organization. He's on the very far minimalist end. I mean, I've seen a tour of the inside of his home, and it's sparse. And
is the opposite of that like a rat pack, or somebody who just collects everything? What is that? Is that the end? Or is it a rat pack? Wait, no, rat pack. That's not right. It's
yeah.
My wife's laughing in the other room right now.
The rat pack.
What time is it? What time is it? It's 8:10. Hang on real quick. Hold on. I need more of this. A pat rat. Oh, thank you.
So the one thing that Jodie helped me a few weeks ago, because I had an incident at my house where my basement flooded. And so basically I had to take everything out of my basement, and I was like, I'm not going to put this back the right way. I just know it. And so I called Jodie in a frenzy, and I was like, I need you. I need your help to do this. And the way that I can get about an hour and a half into organizing, and I'm going to start losing it. I'm like, I can't, I've almost hit my limit about as much organizing as I can do. And Jodie was so amazing to work with for a number of reasons, but mostly because how much fun you actually do have when you're doing it, and how good you are at seeing everything and being able to put it all back in a way that makes sense long term. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that you did that I thought that you do for your clients that I thought is really cool is, for each room that you organize, you actually give them a binder or a kind of a follow-up process, things that you should do weekly, monthly, yearly in order to help zhuzh up that space and maintain how things are. I know you love that word, zhuzh.
Yeah, zhuzh. It's
and maintain what you already have. So that's something that you could give to like your house cleaner or something like that to just make sure that things are staying that way. So maybe just walk us through a little bit of, because like I think that like obviously if you're organized at home, then that just opens up so much like space for you to be able to feel a little bit more free in just your overall existence. I know that might sound crazy to some people, but if I'm unorganized and I feel like I'm floundering a little bit. So yeah, I guess let's talk a little bit about your steps and your processes and how you get started with someone. I think that one of the things is
you have a
the order of organizing, 12 steps. I think that is something that you were going to touch on. So maybe we can dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there are very clear, concise steps to organizing, but the very, very first one has to absolutely start with intention and your mindset, because without that, you're not going to get very far down the road. You have to want to. It's kind of like the 12 steps of other programs. You
have to first, you got a problem, you know.
Yeah, you have to look around and say, oh my gosh, what has happened? I've collected so much stuff, and it's now you've become a stuff manager instead of being able to, you know, engage in all the other components of living, which there are plenty, especially if you have kids in the house. So step number one, intention and mindset, figuring out why you want to do it and how you want to do it and the value of doing it. If you can't see those things, then it's going to be really hard. It's going to be difficult anyway. It's a lot of work, but we have to start there. Then I think the next component really is reflecting on your values, your limitations, and your priorities. You're not going to be able to do this all in one day. You're probably not going to even be able to finish a room in one day, depending on how severe the house is, or the space, or the closet, or whatever we're talking about. And that's okay. You know, there's so many shows on Netflix and so many books out that want it to end up looking like it's been merchandised. Your house doesn't really work like that. Unless you have a very strict, you know, set of guidelines for everyone. So give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. It's going to take some time. If this isn't sort of in your normal wheelhouse, it'll take a minute to train yourself how to truly be organized. So step 3, we're going to assess what you have and sort of take a visual inventory. A lot of times people don't even realize how much of a particular thing they have. And so we have to look at that and kind of make it not painfully obvious, but obvious. And so it needs to all come together and be in the same space so you can truly say, I didn't know I had 45 hats. I don't need 45 hats.
So Jodie, to kind of piggyback on that, so like, let's just use a bedroom, for example. Okay. Are you actually, and maybe I'm getting ahead of it and I apologize, but are you literally going in, you talk about hats, you know, for example, are you going into your bedroom or whatever, going, okay, I'm going to grab I got a hat there. I got it. So do you put everything together in like the middle of the room kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And we'll get into that too, but yes. Okay. And the reason we do that, and I know it seems like one extra step, but you need to see the collection of what you have all in one place so that you can visually understand the weight and the volume of what you've collected.
That'll help you with processes 1 and 2, steps 1 and 2. That'll almost get you in the mindset. You're like, oh my God, like I've got
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you have them, you know, hats are funny. They sneak into your car and they're in your front hall closet and they might be in your bedroom closet and you don't realize until you put them all in one spot. So So 4 then is then determining who's going to be involved. Is it going to be you by yourself? Is your spouse going to help? Do you have kiddos that can do some of the work and you can sort of teach as you go? And will you need professional assistance like an organizer? An organizer is helpful in the sense that we're a coach. And so it's not just us doing, it's us moving through all the processes together and being a support system, because some of this is going to be stressful. Some of it might be very emotional, depending on what we're sifting through. I've had clients that have had spouses pass. And so there's memorabilia from their lives prior to that. And so it's a very sensitive process. And so knowing who's going to be involved and who's your support is really, really key. So then 5 is gathering supplies. We're going to put together, we need bags for donating things. We need a trash bag, and we need a recycle bag, and a tote for things that we're going to donate, sell, or restore somewhere else. Packing tape and or painting tape is great for labeling, and then like a Sharpie marker. So having all that stuff ready so that you're not touching it a bunch. You want to get it out, sift it, put it in the right container so that it's ready to go to its next home, wherever that may be.
Yeah, I think that's huge.
Yeah. Because if you don't do that, and then you create secondary piles, and then you have to touch
moving
it
stuff
all
around.
again. Yeah. And it just becomes, it's
I got
already
5 files
tired.
right here. It's all organized. I got 5 different sections. This is great.
Yeah. So, okay. So then 6 is the remove everything from wherever it's being stored.
Okay. That's one of my questions.
So, and clearing it out. So like if you were doing a garage, that's a bit different. You would pull all of that out into the driveway, literally every last thing. So when I say that it's not going to go and be completed in a day, it probably isn't in a garage. If you're doing a linen closet, you can probably do that in a couple hours. It just depends. So that's the beauty of assessing. You may have to take it in chunks and maybe only do half the garage, depending on your time for that day. Okay, so then 7 is the fun part where we start to sort and organize and edit. Editing has to be a part of organizing. If you keep all those 45 hats, you have to now organize 45 hats. You need 45 hooks, or you need a shelf for 45 hats. It's possible if you live in a 10,000 square foot home.
Have a hat room?
You can have a whole room of hats.
Here's my hat room.
Yeah, but that's not how most of us live. So be ready to edit. And that's key to being organized. Having less to organize is what helps you stay organized.
Jodie, one of my questions is, it says throwing things out, question mark. I mean, I feel like that at this point, when you say edit, it's like, all right, you're going to take this and it's going into the trash can.
Yeah.
Or you're going to recycle it, or you're going to give it to Goodwill. Like, when my wife and I moved from San Francisco to Colorado, we had 5 full bags or 5 full truckloads or something. I can't remember what it was that we sent to Goodwill. And I couldn't tell you one item that I gave away.
That's right.
I have no idea what we gave. Obviously I'm not missing any of it, but the cart was filled with stuff.
Yeah.
Was it hard for you to get rid of those things
Some
at
of those,
the time?
Yeah, some of those, like, because I was like, but what if I need this?
Okay, so Jodie, my question is, okay, like I know that you work with couples and I think that usually what happens is there's one person who thinks that they need to like hang on to everything because they think that they might use it someday, and then there's another person that's like, it's broken, you haven't touched it in 7 years, it's extremely outdated, let's get rid of it. And I have that problem in my house.
You know how frustrating it is to say, like, oh my God, I wish I had that thing, I just threw it away like 2 months ago, and I had.
When did that happen? When did that? You just said like that when those bags that you got rid of, you're like, I couldn't even tell you a thing that I got rid of. But you probably had a little resistance around it. Sure. Like, but and I kind of like to get rid of things. My husband not so much. So anyway,
Jodie, I don't even know if there's a question in there, but like, Yeah, throwing shit out. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So throwing stuff out, first of all, it's hard, but
Yeah.
what you can do is there's a few different personality types that come into play when we're dealing with this, which Amanda just addressed as far as the difference between her and her spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of my favorite books, New Minimalism, they talk about the different archetypes of people and how they respond to letting go of stuff. And some are really good at it and some aren't. And then it also depends on what we're getting rid of. So if you are if you're a connected archetype, you're going to not want to get rid of like cards and gifts and things that are very personal. And so, your spouse may be the opposite and they never save a greeting card that you've given them. They just recycle it immediately. So there is a balancing. You wear a lot of hats, much like when I was an educator. You wear a great deal of hats in the classroom, and it's the same way in organizing. You kind of become a counselor, you become a mediator. You have to sort of weigh these decisions out. And the good part about it is you can put these things that you're not sure about aside in a container, in your garage or wherever you want to stow it, and leave it there for a month, leave it there for 6. And if you haven't touched it or worried about it, then you can just go and get rid and donate, and it's going to be okay.
I like that idea.
Yeah, because there are those archetypes. Another one is practical person. So they're not going to get rid of things that are like craft supplies, nuts and bolts, old screws, stuff like they have just peanut butter jars everywhere of all this stuff in their garage because you might need that,
right.
that screw somewhere down the road.
Where's that 4-foot screw I got or whatever?
Yeah.
Who has a 4-foot screw, 4-inch screw?
Oh no, I don't know. Okay, so then
what's number 8? We're on number 8 right now, Jodie.
Number 8. Let's go back. Okay, so number 8 is so first we want to before we get to number 8, we're going to talk about the categories that go into sorting.
Perfect.
Okay, so because 7 is sort, categorize, and edit. So here are the categories. We're going to start. You can start anywhere you want. What I like to do is start with areas that are not too terribly scary, because what happens is when you start organizing, it kind of catches. And initially you might have some resistance, but then you're like, oh, this is kind of fun. Look at all this extra space I have in my closet. So it depends on where your pain point is. It's going to be different based on your personality. But the categories for organizing are your wardrobe and your accessories. And then your kitchen and entertaining, your household supplies and toiletries, your paperwork and home office, which that's my pain point. I dislike the paperwork things so much. And so again, depending on your personality, you might want to eat that frog first and just get the worst thing over and done. But if it's been untouched for a while, it's painful. So just prepare yourself. Then 5 is hobbies, sports, and toys. Again, kiddos really should be involved. It's a super, super lesson that, we're going to give these old things away to someone who might, really enjoy playing with them, who's younger and, you've outgrown these or whatever the case may be. And then teaching them how to put it away so that they understand that when they're done, it goes back into whatever container. Then 6 is sentimental items and keepsakes, like those those greeting cards and handwritten letters. And then 7 is decor and furniture. So you can do that in whatever order you want. It just depends on really what your personality wants to lead you towards, and also maybe what the worst part of your home is. So you decide.
Those are the categories of what you sort. Okay. within
what you
step
sort,
7.
categorize, and edit, and the order.
Gotcha.
I love the fact that you like there's a structure to it. I think that for me, when I'm like trying to do something, like I just don't like know the first step. Like, where do I start that makes
Right.
the most sense? And you just kind of laid it out. Like,
Yeah.
how often should people be going through their closet?
Well,
I mean,
that
probably
depends on
once a year, right?
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
I do a January 31-day declutter challenge. I've done that for 2 years on my own home and had a ton of clients follow along and report back that they had no idea how useful just eating it a little bit a day really helps. That might drive some people crazy, but it really does break it out into really digestible pieces so that you don't feel overwhelmed, and truly so your house doesn't look like, you know, a tornado has swept through.
For 30 days.
That's
Yeah,
no
you
fun.
still need to live in it.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
so
cool.
creating a staging area off to the side where you keep those things you're not sure of, or you just lay them out for everyone to see. There's a little bit of homework involved, but like, I won't know if this lamp that I see that's, you know, a vintage lamp is important to you, that's been sitting collecting dust. Maybe it was your grandmother's. So there's things like that as we go, clients have to decide and make a call on. So that's nice to have in a separate, maybe a spare room you're not using, or one bay of your garage. So it's not in your main living space, taking up, you know, visual space and physical space. Okay, so number 8 then is getting ready to label everything. That is essential.
That sounds terrible, Jodie.
I know.
That
You
sounds
don't
like, I mean, how much alcohol do you have in your liquor cabinet to start that process?
Well, I love that part. So that's.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I love labeling too.
Yeah, it's fun.
Maybe
It's
that's
so
just me.
fun. Okay, so we won't get you a label maker for Christmas, but it really
convinced
is.
me.
Yeah, it's useful. And here's
Yeah.
why, because it's nice to, let's say you go in your garage and you have totes of your holiday decor, or maybe you keep all your old sprinkler parts for when your sprinkler system, you know, goes haywire. It's nice just to look at it and know that that container is holding that item, and you don't have to dig through all the containers because you can't see through them necessarily. Or when you're training kiddos, they need to know where stuff goes, and a label is essential for that. And it takes the guesswork out. You don't have to go bananas and label every kitchen drawer.
Right.
Once you create the layout, you know, you just create that muscle memory of knowing where it is, and that's fine. But for stuff that you use more rarely, or that you're stowing in an attic or somewhere, it is nice just to visually go, okay, that's Christmas, or that's you know, Halloween.
Do you recommend like a regular kind of cardboard box and label it, or are you a fan of the clear containers so you can actually see inside? What I mean, obviously it's labeled, but is there anything around like having a clear container?
It depends. It depends where you're storing it. If it's going to have a lot of light, that potentially could fade the contents of it, then you should have an opaque plastic container, or a box is totally fine as well. I do like Rubbermaids. They've come a really long way. They last Rubbermaid, the brand, lasts a really long time, as opposed to like some of the others that are a little bit thinner. But you know, if you have boxes because you've recently moved, and that's fine too. That's another thing. I'm not a huge proponent of going out and buying a bunch of containers to just add more stuff to your home to manage.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it that way. But when it calls for it, it is nice to have matching containers so that you know that, and color coded too. That's handy. All the Christmas is in red, all the Halloween is in orange. And luckily, you know, manufacturers have picked up on that, and they're usually readily available most of the time, especially online. So the labeling part just simplifies your, you know, getting it back out when the time comes. And then the number 9 is storing it and figuring out where that's going to work for you. Again, it really depends on how often you use it and what it is. So if it's Christmas stuff, it can probably live in a basement or attic just fine. It doesn't need to eat up prime real estate, like storing stuff under the stairs. You want to leave that for things that you would get at way more often.
Okay.
And then 10 is donating. That to me is a really important part. My husband and I are buying a home right now, and it was full of belongings from this gal in town who had passed away. And I was really hoping that everything would end up donated. There was some really cool vintage stuff. And we drove by the house the other day, and there were 2 30-yard dumpsters in front of the house full of belongings.
Oh.
And it broke my heart. It just broke my heart. Donating anymore is so easy. They'll come to the house and pick stuff up. Even I think 1-800-JUNK will come and get stuff, and then what they can, they resell. So
like there's important. Like a local veterans
yes
group that will come pick that stuff up. I think for free.
Yes,
like,
for free. Yeah. So the throwing out part is just, it's almost, unless it's actually trash, there is a home for it somewhere else to recycle it. There's plenty of places that take electronics anymore. The recycling center, both in Fort Collins at the landfill and in Loveland, are amazing. They literally, I've yet to find something, excuse me, that they don't take. And yes, there may be a nominal fee.
Yeah, there's a great recycling center in Timberline. It's wonderful.
Oh yeah. So good. So donating is number 10. Then 11 is selling. I really think that if it is
/ garage sale. Sweet. Yeah. 11 is the garage sale. All right.
11 is the sale. And you can do it virtually too. So many folks will sell their things on Facebook Market. And that's a great avenue. Yeah, and it's safe. You can see everyone's profile. So, and a lot of people will do a Venmo pay and then a porch pickup. And that's nice for the days that we're in. Yeah, the COVID days.
Good.
Yeah. Isn't that cute? Okay, and then 12.
Is this where you celebrate?
12 is when, you break out the champagne and you enjoy all the work you've done. No, 12 is maintaining, which maintaining can be hard. Maintaining comes in maintaining the mindset, cutting the stream that brought all the things to your home in the first place, and stopping it until you reassess. Why am I buying these things? Why do I have all of these things? So our culture is so
consumer driven.
Yes, that's the word. It's over consumerism. It's just to a point of almost ridiculousness that they're already advertising Black Friday sales. November 1 it started.
I walked into Lowe's in like September and they had Christmas decorations in their app.
Yeah, I hear you. It's really difficult to not buy stuff. And that's why this has become, I think, such a problem. And I think because of COVID and everyone being at home, I think it's also why we're really stopping and recognizing that it has maybe gotten out of hand. And it's time to take our homes back. So
take our homes back. I like that.
Take back the home.
So stopping the flow of stuff in. And really, if you think about what you buy in terms of the life that you exchanged for it. If you're in Target and it's loaded with cute things, because it always is, and you think about how long will it take me to earn the money to buy this item? Is it worth the 2 hours of time? Is it worth me bringing it home? Is it worth me stressing about where I'm going to put it? Is it worth me moving it around a million times because I thought it was cute? Or it was on sale. There's a gal I follow, Courtney Carver, who does Be Less with More. And she said the other day on her podcast that if the price is the best thing about what you're about to purchase, you should leave it on the shelf.
Oh, I love
Totally.
that.
Like
That's great. That's a great.
that's like the like, well, I have a coupon. It's like you don't even need the thing that you have the coupon for, or like buy one get one free. It's like, I really just need one. Like,
one will do,
or none.
So Jodie,
oh, that's a good deal. I should get that. That's a really good deal.
Yeah, right. Well, they figured us out.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And how do you know, that's touching on such a bigger issue.
Oh, for sure.
And so I love that, like, bringing that into your awareness. Are there any tips that you recommend for people to do, like to start to just take an inventory of the things that they buy that they really maybe don't need, like track your spending for a month and just kind of see where are you spending that money? And
not only tracking where you spend, but having a month or multiple months throughout the year, however you want to break it up, where you actually don't spend anything except on groceries and gas, the essentials of life. But you don't shop at, you don't just do a quick run to Target. And you become a lot more intentional in your purchasing. I think online purchasing has kind of led us down a path of it. You're so disconnected from the product because you're not even touching it. You have no idea what it really, if it's valuable or if it's made very poorly, and it's sort of in that planned obsolescence kind of issue. But just clicking and having it delivered, so easy.
Jodie, I want to counter that real quick, just for a second, and just kind of play devil's advocate. So, marketing and people, like, they're big on, like, if you can touch it, feel it, you're going to buy it. Like the shirt, you feel that, wow, that's really soft or something like that. So getting it in their hands, they have sometimes they'll do more impulse purchases. Online, it's like, hey, you can't feel it, you can't touch it, you can't see it, smell it, or you can see it, you can't smell it. So you're just kind of, I feel like maybe you're focused on just things you need. Like, we got to get some more, clean materials or something like that. So you're going on to Amazon and you just order it because you need it. So, but to your point of like going on there, it's also very easy to go on Amazon and sit there and go, I just need all this random shit that I don't really need. You know what I'm saying? But I was I look at it sometimes where I look at Amazon or going online is like, if something that I absolutely need right now, I'm just going to go and order it. Sure. Whereas if I'm in a store touching and feeling things, I'll have the impulse to buy stuff that I really don't need.
Oh, that's interesting.
I kind of countered that point, but just
I think that depends on your personality type too, and how tactile you are. Because I don't buy things online ever, because I don't like to not have the opportunity to touch it and see if it's well made.
Right.
And I like the experience of when I'm going out and shopping. I just like the whole thing about it. Go ahead.
Like, I feel like, because I'm reading our notes here, I was going to ask, like, why multitasking is not helpful. And I'm a huge believer in that. I think that's where you miss things. And we talked about, like, in our last episode, we were talking about books we're reading. I just started reading Atomic Habits, and they talk about how, setting goals is not necessarily the best thing. Like, all these things we were told, you got to be able to multitask, you got to set goals. And the reason they say setting goals is kind of BS, and quite frankly, I totally agree with it, is the whole point, like, to our whole conversation, as we go back to, you have to have intention, you have to have a mindset, you have to have these priorities, else it doesn't work. And they have a great example. It's like, okay, you have a goal to run a half marathon. So you train, you run the half marathon, and then you're done. And then you go back to, drinking and eating and everything. So it's like, sometimes we set these goals in place. Once we hit the goal, we go back to our old, our old ways.
Yeah.
And,
I love that you're saying this.
And the idea is, it's like, screw the goals. Who cares about goals? And like I read in my journal, you got to focus on the process. So you got to wake up every morning and go, and he has a great thing. He goes, you have to build equity. So like, if you want to get into shape, right, and you run a mile one day, you're not going to be in shape, right?
No.
Or, you're not going to, if you want to start eating healthy and eat an apple the first day, you're not now healthy, but you do that over and over. And all it does is it builds up inside your system to the point where a year or two later, you're like, holy shit, I can run a marathon now, or I'm incredibly healthy. And it
Yeah.
kind of goes around to this whole like organizing thing, and going back to the stress thing is like, you got to have a process.
Yeah.
There's no point in setting a goal if you can't maintain that goal. It's like,
That's
hey,
right.
you organize everything, that's wonderful. And then 3 weeks later, it's a complete shit show again. And you're like,
Right.
because you never had the process and the mindset to begin with.
Absolutely. It really is process over product.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're not interested in having your house look like, someone came and merchandised everything
Right.
for you. Although that was very appealing as well, if that's something you want to do. But it's it's working through all the things. And when I say things, it's psychological. It's full of emotion. Why did I get here? What am I trying to fulfill by purchasing these things? What void is trying to be filled? And it unfortunately in our culture, it's so easy. We're a target of that type of marketing. It's been going on for a very long time. And I mean, it's almost Pavlovian as far as like, oh, the multitasking thing is, to touch back on that. Like when you get a notification on your phone, you're instantly like, oh, ding, I better check that. Oh, ding. And meanwhile, you're trying to write an
people
email.
are just like refreshing their emails. It's like, dude, just sit down, take care of the emails at one time. Instead of like, what, are you just waiting for emails to come in?
Yeah, no, don't do that.
Drives me
crazy. No, don't do that. In fact, so with the multitasking thing, the research that I recently have been doing about this is, I mean, I knew it was bad to begin with, having an education in early childhood education. It's terrible for children. Well, it turns out it's really terrible for adults. It actually weakens our ability to focus. It deteriorates our memory. It at times, I recently read that like if you're in a meeting and you're texting, you're basically functioning at the level of an 8-year-old. So you probably oughtn't be texting, important things while you're in a meeting. But so many of us do it because we're in this busy, got to get it done kind of, attitude. And so being intentional and slowing down is really, really important. I recently read that only 2% of people actually multitask well, and that is even debatable at that point. So the rest of us, 98%, which I would argue that it's probably more than that, our productivity levels go down by 40% when we are trying to multitask.
So productivity levels go down 40% when you're trying to multitask.
Yeah.
And what was the 8-year-old statistic you said?
Oh, yeah. So when you are multitasking, your brain is not designed to do that. So what happens is you are actually functioning. It's much like when you're watching television and you're kind of in a coma state. So your brain starts to slow. And so you're functioning at about an 8-year-old's level when you are multitasking. Which explains a lot about really poorly written emails. I understand now where that comes from. So it's like, oh, you were multitasking.
Your brain, say that one more time about I want to write that down because I want to use it in my house.
Yeah.
Like,
so
hey, just
when you are multitasking, your brain is only intended to be focused on one thing at a time so that your prefrontal cortex is engaged. When you're doing multiple things, that's not happening. Those wires are not firing properly. And so because of that, you are basically, reducing your level of functioning to that of an 8-year-old. And that's great if you're 8, nothing against being 8.
To the 8-year-olds out there that are listening.
Yeah, geez, sorry guys. It's fine. But
I think about all the kids that are watching YouTube videos while they're in class.
No.
And like my son is not allowed to have his cell phone in his classroom or in his bedroom either. Well, at night. he only gets a certain amount of screen time. But I like love all this. This is stuff I'm putting in my arsenal for him, because I'm like,
Yeah.
like
It's just, and so on, there's a caveat to this. When you're like, I remember in psych class being taught that when you're studying, it's lovely to listen to like classical music, because it engages the brain in such a way that allows you to actually absorb more information. So having some ambient sound is not a bad thing. That kind of multitasking, okay. But we're talking about trying to answer the phone, send an email, I don't know, change someone's diaper, tie your shoe, whatever the case may be. You just can't do that. But listening, I don't totally understand the science behind why it is that when you're listening to something, and as far as an ambient sound, we're not talking about like just any type of music. Classical music stimulates the parts of the brain that allow you to better focus and to better retain and actually learn the information. So that would be, and we did that in our classroom a lot. Just having light classical music playing in the background, or in your office. That is another option. So much of us are working from home right now, and so there may be kids running around and creating noise. So, having some noise canceling headphones with that playing wouldn't be the worst thing. It would actually help you engage in whatever you're doing. And the engaging component, a great way to think about it is take an hour and divide it into 3 sections of 20 minutes. And so answer texts for 20 minutes, answer email for 20 minutes, and return phone calls for 20 minutes.
Ooh,
and then
20.
Yeah. And then stop and take some sort of a break, whether you stand and you stretch, or you walk around the block real quick. You don't have to do it every hour, but you should stop at some point and just sort of recharge, drink some water, use the restroom. It's easy to just sit in front of the computer and just keep going. And it starts to lessen your ability to function, especially if you're not sitting at a desk that's the right height, or a chair that's set at the right size for you, or the right height, or there's harsh light coming in, or there's whatever weird background noise. There's ways to set up your workspace so that not only can you better do what you're doing, but it allows you to really focus in. And the focusing part actually helps to build, like I said, your memory. It improves your concentration. It also allows you to do what you're doing more efficiently, because that's how our brains were designed.
So Jodie,
is that method like there's like a Pomodoro's method or something where you work for a certain amount of time and then you take an intentional break, and it increases, you get more return when you actually work in more of those breaks into your day?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that,
yeah, it really is essential. It helps improve your self-motivation and self-esteem. It actually lowers anxiety and depression. Again, we're in a place in our culture and in our evolution as humans where I truly think some of the things that we do, we don't fully know or understand the consequences of them just yet. But I do see, I saw a correlation in teaching where we had a lot more early signs of mental health issues than ever before. I don't remember growing up in classrooms where we had that many issues, and maybe they weren't diagnosed and maybe we weren't addressing them correctly. But as an educator, it just kept happening more and more often. There was more autism. There was more ADHD. There was more just general behavior issues. And I often wonder if we're kind of in that same boat as adults, that always keeping ourselves busy, and we're so unorganized, and we're so time constrained that it's affecting our health. It's affecting our home lives. And we're all wondering why it feels like chaos. Well, it's because we've created a hornet's nest to function in. And these are some of the repercussions I fear that we're seeing. Technology, being on social media all of the time. It's just not how we were designed. And
evolutionarily speaking, like our brains haven't been able to keep up with the amount of stimuli that we're constantly exposed to. So I think that and why home organization is such a huge deal. It's like, if you're home, the place where you need to recharge and reset and rejuvenate, if your home is that state of chaos, you're really not getting that rest and rejuvenation that you need in order to handle all the outside chaos that maybe you can't control. I love that you're talking about it in relation to mental health too, because I completely agree. And I know that it might sound a little crazy to some people, but when you are able to informing new habits so much, and I'm going to piggyback on what Chris was talking about with reading Atomic Habits, but like so much of forming a new habit is setting yourself up in the environment the right way so that you can be successful in forming that habit. If you can make it super easy for you to form that new habit, you're going to be, the odds of you succeeding go up.
Oh, they go up exponentially. I mean, oftentimes your home is a reflection of what's happening on the inside. So if you're feeling like you're just, everything is chaos, there's so much stress, your car is another example of what's going on. Externally, you can see what's happening on the inside. That was a question I used to use as an interview question, was to please describe the interior of your car. Because as a teacher, I wanted to know that you were going to be able to manage a classroom well, and that you were going to be organized. And so when you tell me that you've got, soda cans bouncing around in your car, and, dirty Kleenexes everywhere and things of this nature, that's concerning to me. And so I do think that it's whatever's going on inside there's always an exterior way of seeing that. And of course, home is a great place to start and look.
So, Jodie, I want to just kind of real quick touch on, I know we're kind of running out of time, but staging, if you want to touch on staging real quick. Sure. In terms of some tips for staging and agents and getting a home ready to sell and stuff like that. What are some things that people do wrong, and what are some things that, you focus on the bedroom and the living room, and when do you put too much, when is too much? You walk into a house and there's just so much shit everywhere. But
oh boy, that happens a lot. Yeah. Well, I think the thing is, one of the things that I think gets missed a lot is creating a focal point for the room. There really should be one. There should be one focal point. And oftentimes people want it to be the television. It isn't the television. I hate to break it to everybody.
Ew.
Yeah, it's not. And so oftentimes, if you can even just edit the television away, if that doesn't seem like an obvious place, and use the fireplace or a beautiful window as your focal point. And I think creating that sense of slow, intentional living in staging, you're setting the buyers up to see a life that they want to have in that home. And so having something to look at that's beautiful, like the fireplace or a view, is so much better than a big black flat screen television. It just is.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
So that's one thing I think gets missed. I think another thing that gets missed is the bed situation in staging. It's well, they're not always made as beautifully as maybe they could be. And it doesn't have to be fussy. It should be neutral and elegant and simple. just reading Through Staging Studio is where I received my training, and there was a whole debate about the best type of bed platform. Should you use an actual mattress? Would a air mattress suffice? Should you have an air mattress on crates? I mean,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's so many different ways of doing it, but truly at the end of the day, a real mattress is the best way if that's in your budget as a stager. And then making the bed beautifully so that you're setting the stage again to tell the buyer, this is going to be your retreat. This is where you're going to come to restore your everything. And so it needs to look crisp and clean and beautiful and well made. And sometimes it's so well done, they're going to sit on the bed. And the worst thing to have a buyer do would be to sit on a bed that's made of air mattresses and crates.
And then it just, blows up.
Yeah, it blows up, it tips, it deflates, and it just starts to look saggy and terrible. So using a real a bed setup is ideal. I think the other thing that oftentimes gets overlooked, and this is maybe something that the realtor, a stager, and a seller need to collaborate on, is color. Yes, it is easy to paint. As a buyer, it's not a big deal to come in and paint, but it's off-putting when you come into a room and the color is just too much.
You go to a kid's room, it's painted like yellow or blue.
Or purple. Off. That's fine if that's excuse me, if that's what you wanted in your home when you were living there. That's fabulous. That's great. Those are not relaxing colors, and that's a whole nother session. But it should be neutral. It should be something that really invites relaxation and is easy on the eye, so that your focal point can be your focal point, whether that's the bed or the window or the fireplace. It's easy to be distracted by terrible colors.
And so I would windows.
What's that?
Putting things in front of windows. Like a couch in front of a window.
Well, it depends. If you have a low backed couch, it's this whole scale. It's if you can find something, which they make, a nice low backed couch, it can go in front of a window and not block the view just fine. But if you've got some giant big leather, kind of rustic piece, that's not going to work in front of a window. And you run the risk of damaging it in front of a window anyway if you don't have the proper window coverings with sun damage in Colorado. But it can be done. Another thing that people do is they sometimes put furniture on all the perimeter walls, and it needs to come in and be connected by a large area rug. And when I say large, I mean large. 5x7 is never the right size. It's too teeny. It should be sometimes 9x12. I think 8x10 is another size, and all the furniture should have its front legs on the rug. That's how big it should be. So if that can't happen and you have a nice grouping of a love seat and say maybe 2 accent chairs, then your rug is too small, and it makes everything look small.
Interesting.
So those are some of the main things I see sort of go wrong.
No, I love it. Now I'm gonna go back to Amanda. How, on a scale of 1 to 10, are you still a 4, Amanda? After hearing all this?
So when Jodie was saying how like organizing is like a reflection of what's going on inside, I was like, oh no. I think ultimately I just really crave guidance around it, because I don't necessarily feel like I'm good at organizing, because I'm not there's a freaking college for organizing, right? I think that like I've second guessed my methods, and for me, and the gift that Jodie has given me, and I'm really excited to continue to work with her in other rooms of my house, is really just having someone come in and basically be like, it actually makes the most sense for it to be here, and like I'm like, okay, perfect, then that's where it'll be forever. And I'm like, I'm good with that. And then I feel like once you kind of just know and understand that piece of it, it makes everything else so much easier in the future. And so like, do I feel like I'm still a 4? And when you know, maybe, yeah, I don't know. Until Jodie comes
Who
back to
knows?
my house and helps
Yeah.
me with the rest of my rooms, I think so. And getting the family involved obviously is a huge piece of it.
Yeah.
Um, and a gift. I think that that's a huge gift that you can give family and loved ones too, when you really have someone that can kind of come in and take a look at the space and figure out the best way to make it work for you, so that every single day you can have that success and that space freed up in your life. And something that we didn't even touch on that is on your list of topics was, what are you going to do with the extra time in your life when that you freed up by being able to be more efficient in your home? Like, you're gonna gain so much more time, precious time in your life. It's like, I'm gonna read more books, you know?
Yeah. Well,
So
you just
Go ahead.
you become free, and you're no longer a stuff manager.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love
No
that.
one needs
Stuff
that.
management.
No one
Yeah,
needs
nobody wants
that.
that. Jodie, you
I'm
mentioned
retiring for being a stuff manager.
Jodie, you mentioned I think the book was called the Becoming Minimalist. Is that right?
New
Yeah,
minimalism. Oh, wait.
Yeah. Oh, New Minimalism is one of my all-time favorite books. Yes. But
Okay.
Becoming Minimalist is Joshua Becker, and he has a website as well as a few different books that he's written regarding how he got there and why he's maintained it. And he is the one who I first read an article about the staging for living, and it really spoke to me. I thought, absolutely, why do we wait to sell our homes and make all of these lovely improvements and organize it and paint it and fix all these repairs that need to be fixed, and then move out and not enjoy it?
And not enjoy it.
We
that's
need
so
to do that actively in our home regardless. And it's a self-care component. Your home gives to you what you give to it. And so if you're living in disrepair, well, you can imagine what that feels like. It's sort of an undercurrent of like irritation and inflammation,
anxiety.
in your life. Yeah. So it's important to do it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Any other
I
books
agree.
real quick? Any other books, Jodie, you recommend?
I really am in love with The Cozy Minimalist.
The Cozy Minimalist. Okay.
Yeah.
I like the sounds of that.
Yeah. And then I'm very much excited about Courtney Carver's Be More with Less.
Be More with Less.
Yeah. And I think most of these books, well, I'm a big fan of the library, so that we don't collect all of these books in our home. And or Hoopla. I find a lot of great organizing and minimalizing inspiration through the Poudre River Library District's Hoopla app.
Oh, cool. Oh, I didn't even know about that. Hoopla.
Free audiobooks from the
free
library.
Audiobooks. Yeah.
Cool.
It doesn't get better than that.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much for coming on today. Where can people find out more about you and your business?
Oh, sure. So I'm on Facebook. A Sense of Place is where you can find me. I'm on Instagram, and soon I will have a website. I'm this close to being ready to launch that.
Nice.
Yeah.
And are you going to walk people through a 30-day organizing challenge in December?
I won't do it in December, but I
mean January. Sorry.
Do it in January. Yes. January, we will have 31 days of declutter, and oh boy, all the fun you can imagine.
So where can people go to sign up for this so that they can do it with you?
Oh, sure. You can follow along with me on Instagram. That's the best way.
Is it just Jodie Zimmer is on Instagram? If you search for Jodie Zimmer, or is there a specific?
I think it should pull up. It's either Jodie Zimmer or Sense of Place.
Sense of Place. Okay,
yeah,
one of the
they're together. And then you can follow along. It's something that I think everyone can benefit from. And there's days where it may not totally speak to you. It may not be an area you need to, but I also provide fill-in opportunities. So, if you don't have kids, then maybe you work on the basement that day instead.
Cool. I love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I love
you guys. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you so much. That was great.
Good. I hope
Great.
it helps. I hope you have a little project in mind that you
I
can
need to
start.
organize my notes. That's what I need to do.
Oh, well, okay. That's a good place to start.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome. Well,
Awesome.
I guess we'll see you guys next week. And thank you so much for joining us, Jodie.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.